And we'll start off in child's pose. Just take your knees wide on the mat and let your hips sink back towards your heels. If you have a prompt, you can sometimes use a towel or rolled up beach towel. Helps take the pressure off the knees. I'm just going to, again, place your head on your fist. If it's comfortable, you can let your head come all the way down to the mat. And taking a few breaths here, just breathing in and out through the nose. And through our entire yoga practice, we're really going to bring our awareness to the breath. Breathing in and out through the nose. So trying to keep the mouth closed through the whole practice. This helps generate heat in the body. Just taking a few more breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Trying to let go of any thoughts. Trying to be fully present here on the mat. And then if you have your forehead on your hands, taking your hands forward and pressing your hands into the mat, lifting the elbows up off the mat, and just feel a nice stretch from your fingertips all the way through to your low back. Try and relax the head and neck. And on the next inhale, we'll come up onto all fours. Take your time and position your knees right underneath your hips and your hands right underneath your shoulders. And we'll start off with a few cat-cow poses here. So inhale, the chin and tailbone lift, the belly sinks towards the mat. Exhale, rounding the back towards the ceiling, coming into an angry cat. Inhale, chin and tailbone lift. Exhale, rounding the back. Inhale, chin and tailbone lift. It's called cow pose. Exhale, rounding the back into a cat pose. Option to add moving the toes. So inhale, chin and tailbone lift, toes tucked under. Exhale, rounding the back, tops of the feet go onto the mat. Two more. Inhale, chin and tailbone lift. Exhale, rounding the back. And then coming to neutral from here. On the next inhale, we're just going to reach the right hand forward and roll over the left toes and press the left toes into the mat. And feel that stretch from your right hand to your left toes pressing into the mat. Your left leg is straight. Option to stay right here or lift that left leg up off the mat, coming into a balance here. Really reaching forward with the right hand and back with the left heel. And then bringing the right hand down, left knee down. And taking a cycle of breath here. Inhale and exhale. On the next inhale, reaching the left hand forward. And then rolling over the right toes and pressing the right toes into the mat. Again, option to stay right here or lift that right foot off the mat, stretching through the right heel and the left fingertips. And try to stay connected with that breathing in and out through the nose. Two more breaths. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And then bringing the hands down to the mat. We're going to tuck the toes under and just lift our hips up into a downward facing dog. So upside down V. And then we're going to walk our feet to the top of the mat, coming into a forward fold, bending your knees a lot here so that your belly touches your thighs. Perhaps letting the head hang loose, shaking the head yes and no. You can grab opposite elbows if you like. And a gentle swaying from side to side, very gentle. And then letting the hands come down towards the mat. And then slowly rising up one vertebra at a time, reaching all the way up. Hands up overhead. I'm going to turn to face the camera. Reaching the hands up overhead. And then bringing the hands to heart center. Closing your eyes or gazing at your fingertips. And set an intention for your practice. Perhaps sending healing energy out into the world during this pandemic, or love to a loved one. Then opening your eyes, bringing your hands down by your side. I'm going to turn back to the front of the mat. Inhale, hands up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to a halfway lift. So I'm just going to come into the shape of a number 7. So I'm pressing my hands on the very top of my thighs, bringing my elbows towards each other, and really trying to straighten the spine as I press my hands into my upper thigh. Almost every pose here, we're really trying to lengthen the spine. And exhale, releasing the hands, coming into a forward fold. Then inhale, rising all the way up. Hands up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Just slowly warming up the body. And from here, we're going to step back into a high plank. Option to drop to your knees in high plank pose. So I'm going to model that. So my hands are right underneath my shoulders. Again, option to either be up, knees up, or knees on the mat. And over here, we're just going to lower halfway down and then coming upward into an upward facing dog. Just pressing through the hands and then tucking the toes under if your knees are on the mat, then lifting the hips into a downward facing dog. Always an option to come into child's pose at any time. So we'll take a few breaths in downward facing dog. If you find you lose your concentration on your breath, it's always a good idea to come into child's pose to reconnect with your breath. And then you can just catch up with the practice. Take 2 more breaths here, trying to relax the shoulders. And then walking to the top of the mat, coming back into that forward fold. And then slowly rising up, coming all the way up, hands overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to that halfway lift, hands on the top of the thigh, really connecting with that shape of a number 7. And then exhale, forward fold. And from here, we're going to step back again to that high plank. Again, option to drop to your knees. And then lowering halfway down to a low plank. And then inhaling to an upward facing dog. Option here to keep your knees on the mat or Your knees may lift up off the mat, and then rolling over the toes to a downward facing dog, lifting the hips, coming into that upside down V. Here we're going to just lift that right leg, bend the right knee, and press your right foot towards the ceiling. Option to stay right here or open that hip out to the side, just to really open that right hip joint. And then straightening the right leg and bringing the right foot down to the mat. And we'll switch that out, lifting the left foot up, bending the left knee, pressing the left foot towards the ceiling, staying right here or opening that left hip out to the side. And then straightening that left leg, bringing the left foot back to the mat, and then walking to the top of the mat, coming back into a forward fold. Inhale, rising all the way up, reaching the hands up overhead. Exhale, forward fold, bending forward. Inhale to that halfway lift, again pressing the hands at the top of the thighs, reconnecting with that number 7, bring the elbows nice and close to the body. Exhale, forward fold. Here, stepping back one more time to that high plank. Again, option to drop to your knees, and then lowering down halfway, and then lifting up into an upward facing dog, and then rolling over the toes, lifting the hips to a downward facing dog. Take a few breaths here in down dog. And then bringing your feet together at the back of the mat. We're going to come forward into a high plank. Going to drop your right knee down is the first option, or you can roll over your toes, coming into a side plank on the right. So right knee down, bringing that left hand towards the ceiling. Gaze is down towards your right hand. Option to take your gaze up towards your left hand or out to the left side of your mat. Coming into a side plank pose. And from here, bringing that left hand down to the mat, returning to that high plank, to low plank. Inhale, upward facing, rolling over the toes. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, the right leg lifts. We're going to step the right foot forward and just come into a runner's lunge here. If you have blocks handy, you can place blocks right underneath your hands. If you don't have them, just coming up onto the fingertips. Trying to get your right foot right underneath the right knee and really pressing through that back leg. Have a nice straight back leg. Just opening up the hips here. And from here, coming down onto the hands, we're going to take that right foot back, coming back to downward facing dog. Inhale, the left leg lifts. Going to step the left foot forward, scooch it up so it's right between your hands. And we'll do the same pose on the left side. So the left foot is right underneath the left knee. And we're straightening out the right leg, coming up onto our fingertips or our blocks. Really trying to have a nice straight spine here. And then stepping the right foot forward, coming into a forward fold. And from here, bending into the knees, rising up into a chair pose. So we're bringing our hands up overhead, Turn the thumbs out, the little fingers in, and then bringing the hands through heart center, coming back into a forward fold. Inhale to that halfway lift, bringing the hands to the upper thigh. Exhale, forward fold. We're going to step back into a high plank, and then low plank. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths here in down dog. An option to come into child's pose at any time. And just really notice what's going on in your body. One more breath, deep breath in. And then on the exhale, just walking or hopping to the top of the mat. Coming back into a forward fold. Bending the knees enough so that your belly touches your thighs. And then bending into the knees more as we come up into a chair pose. Reaching the hands towards the ceiling. And then bringing the hands towards heart center as you bow forward into that forward fold. Inhale to that halfway lift, so hands on the upper thigh, elbows close to the body. Exhale, forward fold. We're going to step back with the left leg first, and we're going to keep the left hand down on the mat and just bring your right hand to your right hip, your right low back. Option to stay right here, gazing down at your right big toe, or start to open your chest out to the right side, just coming into a gentle spinal twist, keeping that hand on the hip. Taking a few breaths here. And then bringing that right hand down, landing it right next to the right foot and stepping that right foot back, coming back into a downward facing dog. And from here, that's when we all come into that child's pose, just letting the hips sink down towards the mat. An option to either place your head on a block or your hands or your fists, or all the way down onto the mat. And reconnecting with your mountain pose. We'll stay here in child's pose as I admit someone else into the room. Okay. Let's see. Where is Frank? I don't see Frank. Okay, well, I'll keep an eye on Frank. I don't see him in the waiting room. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. So we're still in child's pose. And then lifting the hips, coming up onto all fours, and then lifting up into a downward facing dog. And then walking to the top of the mat, coming back up, back into that forward fold. And then bending into the knees and rising up into chair. You may feel a little burn in the thighs here. And you can straighten up the knees out a little bit and maybe come back in. And from here, bringing the hands to heart center and then forward fold. Stepping back, high plank, to low plank. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, the right leg lifts. We're going to step that right foot forward, back heel down, and we're going to rise up to warrior one. So the first option is just to place your hands on your hips and work on setting up your feet. So your right foot is forward. Your back foot is at about a 45-degree angle. Your hips are pointing straight forward. Then I like to take my hands together at the bottom of knuckles, the bottom of my low back, and press my knuckles towards the mat. Helps open up my collarbones and upper chest. And then release that and just let your arms float towards the ceiling. Coming into warrior one. Then bringing the hands back to the mat, stepping back, high plank to low plank. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing dog. And then bringing your feet together at the back of the mat. And then coming forward to a high plank. We're going to come into side plank on the left side. So dropping the left knee down. Just let that right foot come back to the mat and reaching the right hand towards the ceiling. And then bringing that right hand down to the mat, coming back, high plank. Always an option to drop to your knees in high plank, coming down to a low plank, and then lifting to an upward facing dog, and then rolling over the toes and lifting the hips to downward facing dog. Inhale, that left leg lifts, stepping that left foot forward, back heel down. We're going to rise up to warrior one on the other side. Again, option to interlace the hands behind the low back, press the knuckles towards the floor, and then just let the hands rise towards the ceiling. Turn the thumbs out, little fingers in. Really pressing through the outer edge of your right foot, the little toe side of the foot. Then bringing the hands through heart center, coming back to the mat, stepping back. High plank, low plank. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths here in down dog. And then coming back into child's pose. And let me check, see if Frank's still trying to get in. Taking a few breaths in child's pose. Just seeing if we can let another person in here. A little challenging with this Zoom technology. All right, well, don't see Frank. I'll keep looking for him. So taking a few more breaths here, child's pose. And from here, we're going to lift the hips, lift up into a downward facing dog. Inhale, the right leg lifts, stepping the right foot forward, back heel down, rising up to warrior one. We're going to take that right hand forward and the left hand back, opening up into warrior two. So now your hip points are facing to the left side of your mat. Bending into that front knee and pressing through the outer edge of your back foot. Really reaching the fingers away from each other. So you're reaching the right fingers forward, left fingers back, relaxing the shoulders. Then turning the right palm up towards the ceiling, reversing your warrior, reaching that right hand towards the ceiling, left hand just drapes over the back leg. And then coming back to warrior two. And from here, we're going to come into side angle pose. So bringing your right forearm to your right thigh, taking that left hand up towards the ceiling, really reaching the left hand towards the ceiling, turning your palm towards the front of your mat, and then bringing your left bicep towards your left ear. Perhaps turning your gaze out to the left side of your mat. Feeling a line of energy from your left fingertips to your left heel. And then coming back to warrior two. And then windmilling your hands back to the mat. Stepping back, high plank to low plank. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, the left leg lifts. Stepping the left foot forward, back heel down. Then rising up to warrior one. And our hip points are facing forward. And then taking the left hand forward, right hand back as our hip points point out to the side of our mat. Settling into your warrior two. Pressing through the back edge of your right foot and bending into the left knee. Really reaching the fingertips apart, but relaxing the shoulders. And then flipping the front palm towards the ceiling and then reversing the warrior, raising your left hand towards the ceiling. Back hand just drapes over the back leg. Taking a few breaths here. Perhaps feeling that burn in the left thigh. And then coming back to warrior two. And then bringing that left forearm to the left thigh as you reach that right hand towards the ceiling. Really reaching the right hand high towards the ceiling. Feel that right shoulder joint open up. Then turning the right palm towards the front of your mat as you bring your bicep towards your right ear. And try to feel a line of energy from your right fingertips to your right heel. Nice straight spine here. And then returning to warrior two. Left hand forward, right hand back. Then windmilling our hands back to the mat. Stepping back, high plank, low plank. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing dog. Then walking your feet to the top of the mat, coming into a forward fold. Let's measure off 2 fist distance in between our feet. Bending your knees a lot. We're going to take a Yogi Toe Lock. So with our peace sign fingers, we're going to go in between our big toe and our second toe, and then bring our thumb on top so that we have what we call a Yogi Toe Lock on the big toe. Inhale, straightening the spine. Exhale, forward fold. My belly is still touching my thighs. My knees have a slight bend in them. Letting the head hang nice and loose. I'm pressing my toes into my fingers as I'm pulling up on my toes. Take a nice deep breath. Just feel the breath go into the low back. Then releasing the toes, and then slowly walking up the legs, coming all the way up. Reaching up overhead, and then bringing the hands down by the side and connecting with the mountain pose. So a mountain pose, our feet are facing forward, our palms are facing forward. We're standing nice and tall. We're going to move on to some balancing poses here. So our first balancing pose, we're going to bring our hands to our hips. We're going to shift the weight into the left leg just by lifting the right heel. Then option to bring that right knee up, keeping the knee bent. Bringing the hands down by the side. Stay right here, or bring that right hand to the right knee. Again, option to stay right here or take that right knee out to the right. That left hand can stay on your hip or it can go out to the side. Gaze can be straight ahead or over towards your left hand. And if you fall out, just come back in. I find it, I'm on a carpeted surface, so it's really challenging with these balancing poses. And then bringing that knee back to the center, hands on the hips, straighten that leg. And then we're going to bend the leg again, drop the hands down by the side and go back into an airplane pose. Just dropping the feet, the right foot back, keeping the shoulders higher than the hips. Really fire up your hands here like you're trying to palm a basketball. That helps fire up the upper extremities. And then bringing the hands to heart center. Keeping that back leg lifted. And then we're going to walk our hands down that standing leg, coming into a standing split. So you can either keep your hands on your leg or your ankle or bring your hands to the floor or a block and just lift that back leg as high as it's comfortable for you. Letting the head just relax. And then bringing the right foot next to the left, coming into a forward fold. And then slowly rising all the way up, reaching the hands up overhead. And then bringing the hands through heart center and reconnect with that mountain pose. So we'll do all that on the other side. So again, starting with the hands on the hips, lifting the left heel, so we're bringing the weight into the right foot, lifting the left knee. Again, option to stay right here, or we can release the hands. This is a great balancing pose. We're bringing that left hand to the left knee, taking the left knee out to the side or just standing with it forward. Right hand can stay on the hip or can go out to the right side. Again, your gaze can be straight forward or over towards your right hand. And breathe. Don't forget the breath. And then bringing that knee back to center, hands back on the hip. And then down by the side, palms forward. And then floating back into that airplane pose. Option to let that back toe touch the mat. Bending into the right knee. And then experiment with raising that left toe up off the mat. And bringing the hands to heart center. Then slowly walking the hands down the right leg, coming into a standing split. Again, option to keep the hands on the ankle or the floor. Option to bring one hand behind the calf or the ankle. This is a very challenging pose. And then bringing the left foot next to the right, coming back into that forward fold. And then slowly rising up all the way, hands up overhead. And then bringing the hands through heart center and then back to mountain pose. We'll do one more balancing pose. Just keep an eye on our time here. So we'll do a tree pose. So we're going to start on the right side. So we'll lift the right heel. Weight goes into the left foot and just bringing that right foot either to the inside of the ankle, calf, or above the knee. We never want to put that foot directly on the knee joint. I'm just going to go on the calf today. It's a challenge on this carpeted surface. And then bringing the hands to heart center. And then standing tall, really connect with that nice straight spine. And breathe. I'm going to come back to the ankle. I'm struggling on this carpet today. And then bringing the right foot down, bringing the hands down by the side, just connecting with that mountain pose for a second. But then switching to the other side. So bringing that, bending the left knee, bringing the left foot either to the ankle or the calf or up above the knee, bringing the hands to heart center. There's an option to either keep the hands at heart center or you can take the hands up overhead, turning the thumbs out, the little fingers in, into a full expression of the tree pose. But then bringing the hands back through heart center, foot to the mat, hands down by the side. And then turning, I'm going to turn back to the top of the mat. Inhale, hands up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Stepping back to a high plank. But then coming to a low plank. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, the right leg lifts. We're going to step the right foot forward, back heel down, rising up to warrior one. You're going to take the right hand forward, left hand back, coming into warrior two. We're setting up for a triangle pose. So we're going to straighten that front leg. So both legs are straight. And then trying to keep the arms parallel to the floor, I'm just going to hinge forward, reaching the right hand as far forward as I can. I'm tilting the hips. And then just letting that right hand come down towards the right leg, perhaps resting right on the shin as the left hand reaches towards the ceiling. Coming into a triangle pose. And breathe. And then let that left hand pull you back up, coming back up. Bringing the hands to the hips. We're going to just turn that right foot in. So now we're facing out one side of the mat. I'm going to switch so you can see me. Keeping the hands on the hips, we're going to inhale, taking the gaze towards the ceiling. On the exhale, bending forward but stopping halfway. Again, really pressing the hands into the hips and reconnect with a nice straight spine. And then just letting the hands drop towards the mat. And then hinging very slowly, bringing the fingertips down towards the mat. Staying right here or slowly walking your palms down onto the mat, the floor. Trying to maintain that nice straight spine. If you're comfortable here, you can start to walk your hands towards the center of the mat, bending your elbows and relaxing the head and the neck. Perhaps shifting a little bit more weight into your toes. You feel a stretch in the hamstrings here. And then walking the hands back, forward, right underneath the shoulders. And then bringing the hands up to the upper thighs. Take an inhale and exhale. And then on your next inhale, coming all the way up. Common to be a little bit dizzy here. Gaze towards the ceiling. Bringing the hands back to the hips. Turning that left foot forward and stepping towards the top of your mat. Inhale, hands up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. And from here, you're going to step that right foot back. And then rise up into a warrior one. Opening up into a warrior two. Straightening that left leg, the front leg. And then reaching the left hand forward. Coming into a triangle pose on the opposite side. So left hand down, right hand towards the ceiling. Really trying to reach that top hand towards the ceiling. Left hand down towards the mat, perhaps pressing against the inside of your shin with the back of your palm. Then reaching the top hand towards the ceiling, coming back forward, turning the toes towards the right side of your mat. Inhale, gazing towards the ceiling. Exhale, forward fold. Again, stopping halfway, pressing the hands into the hips, and then just letting the arms dangle right underneath the shoulders, and then hinging until your hinging forward until your fingertips touch the mat. And trying to maintain that nice straight spine coming down onto your palms, and then walking the fingers, hands back towards the center of the mat. Relaxing the head and neck. Shifting a little weight into the toes. And breathing into your hamstrings here. Then walking the hands forward. Coming back up onto the fingertips. Reconnecting with that nice straight spine. Then bringing the hands to the upper thighs. Pressing the hands into the thighs as you inhale, coming all the way up. Slight back bend at the top. Then bringing the hands to the hips. And then bringing the feet back to the top of the mat. And from here, we're just going to walk to the back of the mat. Come down onto our knees and lay on your belly, laying all the way down on your belly. We're going to go about 10 more minutes. So we'll finish up about 5 after 4, if that's okay with everybody. So bring your elbows right underneath your shoulders, setting up for Sphinx pose. So placing the tops of your feet on the mat, so the shoelace part of your foot is on the mat, pressing the palms into the mat and really lifting through the shoulders. So you're lifting the chest up, pressing the tops of your feet into the mat so that your kneecaps lift up off the mat. So you're really opening up the front body here. Try not to crunch your low back. If you're feeling a crunch in your low back, just back off. Taking a few breaths here. And then lowering all the way down to the mat, taking your gaze to the right side, hands down by your side. Your big toes touch, your heels fall apart. Just relax the shoulders and just let it go. Perhaps noticing your heartbeat, reconnecting with that breathing in and out through the nose. And then bringing your chin or forehead center on the mat, bring the hands underneath the shoulders and slide your hands back to about the middle of your rib cage so that your elbows are right on top of your wrists. Again, pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, the kneecaps lift up off the mat. Inhale, chin and chest lift up off the mat. No pressure in the hands. This is all low back, or the erector spinae muscles in the back. I'm taking a few breaths here. And then lowering the chin back to the mat, taking your gaze to the opposite side, turning to the left side of your mat, hands down by your side, big toes touch, heels fall apart, and just let it go. And then bringing your chin back to center. This time we're going to turn our palms down on the mat, down by our hips. Inhale, chin and chest lift up off the mat. Option to bring your hands up off the mat. And if it's okay with your low back, you can raise the feet up off the mat. Coming into a full locust pose. And then lowering all the way down, taking your gaze to the right. Big toes touch, heels fall apart, and just let it go. And bringing the chin back to center on the mat. We're going to just come up onto all fours and find our way onto our backs. Laying all the way down onto the mat. Bending your knees and reach down and see if you can just graze the back of your heel with your fingertips. We're setting up for a bridge pose here. And we're just going to do one bridge today. So I'm going to modify this bridge a little bit by just having you bend your elbows and really pressing your elbows into the mat, opening up your fingertips, and just imagine an energy field between your hands. And we're going to bring the hips right up into that energy field between your hands. So take a deep breath in. And then on the exhale, pressing the feet into the mat and lifting the hips up into that energy field between your two hands. So really pressing the elbows into the mat. Make sure you're gazing straight towards the ceiling and you're not twisting your neck to one side or the other. Really trying to keep the feet, the knee, and the hip all in a straight line on each side. And then slowly start to lower the hips down towards the mat, going really slow when you're lowering the hips down. And just really notice when the sacrum hits the mat that all the muscles in the whole pelvis just relax. Then relaxing the hands down. Taking your right foot towards the ceiling, keeping that left knee bent. We're going to turn our right toes out to the right side. And then bending the knee, we're going to place that ankle right behind your left knee. So your right ankle is right behind your left knee. Going to take your right hand and press your right knee away. This is called we're setting up for either a reclining pigeon or thread the needle pose. This is quite an opening of the hip joint. So if you're really feeling this in your right hip, just stay right here. Option to lift that left foot up off the mat and interlace your hands behind your left hamstring. And start to pull that left thigh in towards your chest. Keeping both feet flexed helps protect your knees. And you don't want your hands and arms to do all the work here. So back off a little bit with your hands and feel your legs do at least half the work of pulling the left leg in towards the chest. And then slowly lowering that left foot down onto the mat. We're going to bring that right knee in and give the right knee a hug and take the left leg long. I'm going to set up for a spinal twist here. So keeping the left hand on the right knee, take your right hand out to the right side. And then guiding that knee over to the left side, coming into a spinal twist. Try to keep your head and shoulders on the mat. Right hand is reaching right out from the right shoulder, flexing both feet, and then just relaxing wherever you are. Your gaze can be at the ceiling or over towards your right hand. And then coming back into center, giving that right knee one more hug. Then taking the right leg long, reaching the hands up overhead for a stretch from fingertip to toe tip. And then bringing both feet, bending both knees, bringing both feet to the mat, bringing your hands down by your side. Taking that left foot towards the ceiling, really pressing the toes towards the ceiling, and then turn your left toes out to the left side and bending the knee and bringing your left ankle behind your right knee. Setting up for that figure 4 pose or threading the needle, or reclining pigeon. Taking the left hand and pressing the left hand into the left knee. Option to stay right here or interlacing the fingers together behind your right thigh and pulling that right thigh in towards the chest. Should feel this in the left hip. Again, keeping both feet flexed to protect your knees. Try easy here. Perhaps backing off a little bit on the hands, pulling the thigh, and let the legs do a little more of the work. Pulling that knee in towards the chest. And then releasing, bringing that right foot to the mat, hands down by your side, taking that left foot towards the ceiling, and then slowly lowering the left heel towards the mat. And when the left heel touches down, bring the right heel out to meet it, reaching the hands up overhead for a stretch from fingertip to toe tip. And then let's bring that right knee, the left knee, bring that left knee in. You can keep that right leg long. Setting up for a spinal twist on this side. So taking the left hand out to the left, and then guiding the knee over to the right. Might need to scooch that right hip up a little bit so that you come onto the side of the right hip. Again, both feet are flexed. Gaze can be towards the ceiling or over towards your left hand. Trying to keep your head and shoulders on the mat. And then just relax into the pose. And then coming back into the center, giving that left knee one more hug. And then taking the feet wide on the mat, coming into our final pose, Shavasana. So taking your feet wide on the mat, hands down by your side, palms facing the ceiling. If you have something to cover your eyes, you can cover your eyes. And we'll just stay here for about 4 minutes. So just let go of your breathing and just breathe normally. Sending gratitude to your body for this practice. Feeling the weight of gravity on the front of your body. And feeling the earth supporting you from below. Starting to bring some motion into your fingers and your toes. Bending one knee, bringing your foot flat to the mat, and then bending the other knee. Reaching your right hand up overhead and rolling onto your right side, bringing your ear onto your bicep. Then finding your way to a comfortable seated position on your mat. Bringing your hands to heart center. Gazing at your fingertips or closing your eyes if you like. We'll end our practice by bowing forward and saying Namaste. So taking a deep breath in. And then on the exhale, bowing forward, Namaste. Thank you, brothers, for sharing the practice with me.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
That was good. That was good.
How'd your back do?
Good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Did well. Yeah.
Let's see. Mike, are you still there?
I'm here, yeah.
I-
So excellent.
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't get Frank in. I tried a couple times to get him in.
I think you probably should stop recording.
Oh, you have to stop recording and let somebody in, probably.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, because I mean, I saw
I
you.
don't know. I don't know how it works exactly, but you might want to stop recording anyway.
Yeah,